Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
National Working Committee of the PDP names Damagum as acting national chairman to replace Iyorchia Ayu. NLC and TUC suspend planned strike scheduled to commence tomorrow over scarcity of Naira notes. In Osun State, Governor Adeleke assures Interior Minister of support in sustaining his lofty policies and programs. On the foreign scene, 6 people, 3 of them children, killed in primary school shooting in Nashville, United States. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Damilola Raphael. The People's Democratic Party PDP National Working Committee has named Iliya Umar Damagum as the acting national chairman, replacing Iyorchia Ayu. Until his appointment, Mr. Damagum was the PDP National Deputy Chairman, NOS. PDP spokesperson Debo Ologunagba made the announcement at a news conference in Abuja. The appointment follows a High Court order restraining Senator Ayu from parodying himself as the party's national chairman. He said the decision was taken at an emergency meeting of the NWC, adding that the appointment is with immediate effect. The calls for Senator Ayu's sack have been a recurring decimal since the presidential primary election of the PDP last year.
When I'm fully briefed, I will call you again and we'll have a session, a question and answer session. I'm sure you people are eager to ask so many questions now. I may not be in a rightful position to say much, but I will give opportunity for 2 questions so that at least I don't err in law. There is already a court order. I don't know what the order means. I have to study it first. So.
Meanwhile, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has expressed satisfaction over the ouster of the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Iyorchia Ayu. Moments after Mr. Ayu's removal was made public, Governor Wike celebrated the defeat at the commissioning of the Trans-Kalabari Road Phase 1, the Gema local government area of Rivers State. He stated that all those who were plotting evil against him and his allies are now the ones suffering it. The governor, who is a member of the G5, refused to support the presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, in the presidential election over the failure of Mr. Ayu to resign as PDP chairman.
See how I prepare them now. I don't know that we are suffering it now. I said nobody can suspend him, but today he has packed out from the office. We have an acting chairman there. I told him, you will go. Whether you like it or not, you will go. Those lawyers telling you that the world has no power to suspend you is only neck. Then you don't understand. When you came, it was the world that suspended secondary, is it not? And you went and took office, is it not? It is not that you know that's only neck. Let me tell you, since they have not told you, the court has struck off that section of our constitution to say that neck only. So you don't know what. And the PDP did not even appeal the judgment. So forget their own is God. You must be wasting your time. We are ready to battle. We are ready for the battle. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not from Benue, but I have interest. That interest that Ayu must go. And I'm going to carry it in May 29 when I leave office.
Governor of Benue, Samuel Otom, says he has accepted his defeat at the February 25th National Assembly poll. All Progressives Congress APC candidate Titus Zam had defeated the governor to clinch the Benue Northwest senatorial seat. Following his defeat, Governor Otom was said he was ready to challenge the outcome as the tribunal, as it was clinically and electronically rigged. However, today, the governor said he had withdrawn his case against Mr. Zam in the interest of peace. In an address at the Benue People's House in Makurdi, the state capital, Governor Otom said although the elections were marred by malpractices, nothing can be given to a person except it is from God. He expressed gratitude at the opportunity to lead, saying he ensured that his government was characterized by equity and fairness. Amidst the internal lobbying for the next leadership of the upper and lower chambers of the 10th National Assembly, Senator Orji Kalu today informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his intention to run for Senate presidency. Senator Kalu disclosed this to State House correspondents shortly after meeting with President Buhari in his office at the Asarok Villa. He said he was open to vying for the Senate presidency if the All Progressives Congress, APC, would zone the office to the southeast. Senator Kalu, who is the current Senate Chief Whip representing Abia North District, argued that zoning the office to the southeast would ensure the stability of the incoming administration. Other senators who have openly declared their intention to run for the Senate presidency include Senators Jibrin Barau from Kano Central and Sani Musa representing Niger East. Candidates of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, in the recently concluded Idiato North and South Federal Constituency election and current lawmaker representing Idiato North in the Imo State House of Assembly, Arthur Egwim, is dead. Confirming Mr. Egwim's demise in a statement, Speaker of the State Legislature, Emeka Nduka, said the lawmaker died after a brief illness in his home in Lagos State. While commiserating with his immediate family and colleagues, people of the Idiato Nation and the entire state, the Speaker describes the late lawmaker as one of the best brains in the Parliament whose demise would create a vacuum in the Imo State Assembly. Mr. Egwim was a ranking member in the State House of Assembly, having been elected in 2015 and got re-elected in 2019. In other news, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, have suspended their planned strike scheduled to commence tomorrow over the scarcity of Naira notes. The Labour unions made this known at the end of their National Executive Council meeting today. The Labour unions have threatened to embark on a nationwide strike if issues like the cash crunch, fuel scarcity, and electricity tariff increase are not addressed by the government. NLC President Joe Ajero said after receiving briefings from its state councils in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, the NLC decided to put on hold the planned stay-at-home directive issued to the workers last week. He said the NLC would resume the planned protest if Naira notes become unavailable to Nigerians by the end of 2 weeks. Yesterday, Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, met with the leadership of the Congress in a last-minute attempt to avert the impending strike. In the meantime, Nigerians have called for more injection of cash into commercial banks to ease the pain of queuing for hours in banks. This follows the directive of the Central Bank of Nigeria to evacuate banknotes to commercial banks last week. Toby Sanusi visited some commercial banks today and now reports.
Few days after the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, directs the evacuation of banknotes from its vaults to commercial banks across the country. As part of efforts to ease the circulation of banknotes of various denominations, the struggle for cash availability still lingers. While most POS agents are still closed down, queues in banks have increased following the CBN's intervention, which many believe came late. Few bank customers like Rukayat Wahab, Dauda Adishino, and Miriam Adeniju, who spoke to Western Spring Television, say more bank ATMs now dispense about 10,000 naira to 40,000 naira, a situation that was not so in the wake of the cash crunch.
It has been a long time, although the crowd has been reducing than before, but we are still on it because there is still no enough cash We are just managing the little they are giving us. Because on ATM now, inside the bank now, they are not paying anything. But on ATM now, the highest you can collect, if you are using, if it is your bank that you are using, you can collect highest of 40,000 naira. Other bank, you can collect just only 20,000 naira, which is not enough for what we need.
Tí ẹ dúpẹ́ pé ó jẹ́ tí ń rọjú díẹ̀díẹ̀, but owó tí access gangan tó fi sílẹ̀ fún àwọn èèyàn láti máa gbà, that's 40,000. Other bank 10,000. So ni wọ́n ń fún wọn. So a tún bẹ̀ ìjọba ẹjọ́ kan bá wa tún kó owó yẹn síta so that a lè rọ tonílé tẹlẹ́mù, a lè rọ̀ wá lọ́rùn.
I've not been able to withdraw. Now I'm having number 142. Though the thing is very, like, the arrangement was good. There is other bank, there is the normal bank that we are. So the thing is, they are just giving us 20,000 naira per ATM, and you are not allowed to use the ATM again. Even if you queue again, they won't allow you. So you have access to 20,000, but other bank, I think, is 5,000. This is fair. At least it's fair, because as at last month, the last time I came here, I wrote 20,000. I entered the bank. I wrote 20,000. I was given 5,000 naira cash. Can you imagine? So now they are giving me 20,000. You cannot compare 5,000 to 20,000, and that 5,000 is 30 naira.
However, Bashir Kamardeen thinks money is still yet to circulate in banks, as he maintained that he could not make any withdrawal today.
There is still money scarcity in the banks. So I don't think all the news that we have been hearing that the CBN has disposed money, it is a lie. They didn't dispense anything. The money they gave to us since Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even yesterday, we are still receiving up to 100,000. But in some banks, not in every banks. But today, most of the banks cannot pay up to 100,000. Most of the banks here in Osogbo, they cannot pay up to 100,000. So what are we now saying?
POS agents like Zainab Lagbaja, whose business has been crippled as a result of the naira scarcity, believes commercial banks should lift withdrawal restrictions on POS agents who use the cash for business.
Now that CBN said that we should go and collect money from the bank, we collect at POS, we collect 20,000. 20,000 is not enough for business, so that money is small. CBN they don't give POS money, excess money. We are receiving the same amount in the bank. There's no difference between POS business and individual, so they don't give us much cash in the bank.
Going forward, many Nigerians expect that in the coming days, more money should be injected into commercial banks to ease the frustration of cash crisis. For Western Spring Television, Toby Sanusi reporting.
Meanwhile, a Lagos-based activist lawyer, Tope Alabi, has approached the Federal High Court in Lagos for leave to initiate contempt proceedings against Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele for alleged disobedience of the Supreme Court orders on its Naira redesign policy. Mr. Alabi made the application via an ex parte motion in the suit, with Mr. Emefiele listed as the sole respondent. Describing the Naira swap as a cash confiscation policy, he said it had affected the day-to-day running of his office, as his staff could not make it work daily due to the non-availability of physical cash, adding that commercial drivers do not have point-of-sale devices to collect fares. Mr. Alabi added that the CBN's alleged initial non-compliance with the Supreme Court order has affected his job as a legal practitioner. A federal high court sitting in Lagos has fixed April 20th, 2023 to rule on an application filed by Kogi State seeking to vacate an interim order of the court freezing 14 properties linked to the state governor. Justice Nicholas Weibo fixed the date after taking submissions from the Kogi State Government Council, Abdul Wahab Mohammed, and the Council to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Rotimi Oyedepo. On February 22nd, the court had granted the interim forfeiture order following an ex parte motion to confiscate 14 properties and firms in Lagos, Abuja, and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, as well as 400 million naira recovered from one Aminu Falala. Elsewhere, President Muhammadu Buhari today said Nigeria would experience effective governance under the administration of the president-elect Bola Tinubu. He noted that Senator Tinubu has the political pedigree and experience to achieve this by May 29th, when he would take over the leadership of the country. The president said this in a statement issued by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, as the president-elect clocks 71. President Buhari believes that Senator Tinubu's warmth, friendliness, and generosity has set the pace for a network of friends home and abroad that will shape his presidency with requisite expertise to guide the economy and consolidate on the investments of past leaders, particularly in people-first development and infrastructure. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke assures Interior Minister Rauf Aregbesola of support in sustaining his lofty policies and programs. We will bring you more on this when we return.
The Korean War of 1950 to 1953 pitched North and South Korea against each other in response to intrigues by nations beyond their border with different interests from those canvassed by the two brother nations. The Korean War had all the nuances of an external conflict induced by powers that were interested in subjugating North and South Korea. Japan had leveraged on its military power to annex Korea in 1900 and imposed a military union that did not sit well with the citizens. Japan not only lost its war of conquest against Korea, all its powers were obliterated by the effect of the World War II. The end of World War II got Korea divided into two nations along 38th parallel lines by the instrumentality of the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The Korean War lapsed into a Cold War when it stopped the prying eyes of external forces into the internal affairs of a nation now divided along its north and southern territories. Western Spring Television identifies the Korean War as a major event in history. The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies the Berlin Conference as a major event in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. National Working Committee of the PDP names Damagum as acting national chairman to replace Iochia Ayu. NLC and TUC suspend planned strike scheduled to commence tomorrow over scarcity of Naira notes. In Osun State, Governor Adeleke assures Interior Minister of support in sustaining his lofty policies and programs. On the foreign scene, 6 people, 3 of them children, killed in primary school shooting in Nashville, United States. A fire outbreak has been reported in a 5-story building in Balogun Market, Lagos State. According to the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, the fire, which broke out this morning, affected the topmost floor of the building. Reports said the fire affected the section of the building where traders sell shoes. Director, Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, Adesheye Margaret, said the inferno is under control as firefighters have been mobilized to the area. The fire truck of the United Bank for Africa, UBA, also assisted in efforts to quench the inferno. The incident is the second market fire in the state in the last few weeks. Prior to the governorship election of March 18th, a fire destroyed some shops at the Akere Auto Parts Market in the Olodi-Apapa area of the state.
Number one is that when this fire starts, we are about the people that is always there. We always throw people this out, and the fire is never too much, that much. Then when that up, when throw people to us, we sleep from that up and throw people out. Throw some people this and throw people. So they don't even bring that the fire ignition or the fire service. But the fire service now come, we even question when the fire stops. They now off the fire. They say the water is finished. Since if not by night, the fire is finished. Yes. Yeah, now the thing said I know I've stopped for that place. Nobody say I'm the one that's running about since. So my complete my fire and everything has been lost. You can never say anything. But now this now it works like this. When it's not like I just say, don't hang up for the night. It's not doing anything.
In Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke today assured the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, of the state government support in sustaining and entrenching his lofty policies and programs. Governor Adeleke said Ogbeni Aregbesola is always welcome in the state, with a pledge to complete all the projects initiated by the former governor for the growth of the state. The governor made the pledge in Ilesha at the official commissioning of the Ilesha Passport Front Office and Production Center. He found that governance should be above political interests and party lines and should be focused on bringing progressive development to the citizenry. Governor Adeleke also sought the support of the Nigeria Immigration Service and other security agencies to his administration's drive to tackle illegal mining in the state. In his remarks, Ogbeni Aregbesola appreciated the governor for gracing the event, stating that his disposition to honor him despite party differences is worthy of note. As the May 2023 National Population and Housing Census draws close, Nigerians have expressed readiness to actively participate in the process. According to the National Population Commission, NPC, this year's exercise will rely on technology and innovation to achieve set objectives. Emmanuel Ujiadigele has more on the story.
The last population and housing census conducted in Nigeria was in 2006, and now 17 years later, the National Population Commission NPC has slated May 3rd to 25th, 2023 for the next census, which is expected to cost $1.88 billion or 869 billion naira, while $1.36 billion or 626 billion naira is earmarked for the census at $6 per capita. $527 million or 243 billion naira is budgeted for post-census activities up to 2025 in all the 774 local government areas of Africa's largest population. Nigeria's population and housing censuses have always been dogged by controversies, particularly in 1962, 1973, 1991 and 2006, as recalled by an Osun resident, Prince Johnson Adiola, who believes this year will be better.
I witnessed that of 2006, and the 2006 is not a good census so far because it's full of irregularity by then. But this year's census, I pray that if they pass through the normal protocol, the procedure that we want to follow, top printing and other, this one will be better to that of in comparison with that of 2006.
With the introduction of digital technology for credible, reliable and acceptable outcomes, residents like Prince Adeola and Miss Mary Feoluwa, who participated in the 2006 exercise, are optimistic about this year's exercise.
I will participate fully in that in this coming census by the God grace. If I used to campaign to tell my neighbor, my community, that they should ready for that day or this coming census, because without census they will not know the actual accurate figure in the country, how to plan for the betterment of the country. They will not know, but this census will better the country.
I recall being counted then. I think I don't know, maybe 4 or 3. I was so small then. I'm looking forward to it because I believe that with this, the government will be able to help us to increase the standard of living of people in the society and do some kind of things and know the areas where people are suffering and provide infrastructure as to those areas.
Those who do not totally recall being counted in 2006, such as Mr. Kasim Ahmed and Ms. Damilola Oyewumi, also say this year's census will be productive and exciting.
I'm very excited, very, very happy when I heard about it this morning that the population is going to take place. At least be able to know our population, the number of Nigerians. I'm very happy when I heard the news this morning.
I think the main reason why they are doing this population census is to know the number of people that are living in a particular state. Maybe they can help in other things, maybe infrastructure and the likes, just to improve the standard of living. Since if you're having a high population of people, definitely the standard of living might increase and other stuff, so they'll be able to balance things up.
Earlier in a news briefing, National Commissioner of the NPC, Senator Mudashiru Hussain, assured of a seamless exercise, citing several tests and trainings already carried out.
The Commission has embarked and still embarking on capacity building to develop human and materials resources in preparation for the main census. This capacity building has started since 2022 and still ongoing. Such training includes training of facilitators, DQM, that is Data Quality Manager, specialized workforce, SWF, e-recruitment of functionaries, compendium of localities, stakeholder forum, among others.
Senator Hussain also disclosed that potential bottlenecks such as security have been factored in and possible solutions outlined.
We're going to engage the vigilante, the hunter. That is why the National Population Commission has directed. We did it in Abuja. We have already inaugurated the Security Committee in Abuja, and we are replicating the same in our various states all over the country. I cannot offload our strategic activities in terms of security. It's encompassed, okay? When we say security, it's loaded.
Censuses allow the government to correctly capture changes in the population, the age structure or movement of population for alignment of public policy and also for investment decisions. 885,000 persons are expected to be trained to conduct the dual-purpose census, population and housing, and according to the government, for this year's census, people will not be asked about their ethnicity and religion owing to their sensitive nature. Emmanuel Ujadigeli, Western Spring Television News.
Moving on, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has raised the alarm over a proliferation of dangerous and unregulated bleaching creams in the market, which is likened to a pandemic. The agency made this known during its media sensitization workshop on the dangers of bleaching creams and regulatory controls held in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. Director General of the agency, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, further lamented the health threats accompanying long-term use of dangerous agents and urged Nigerian women to be proud of their skin color. Professor Adeyeye, who was represented by the agency's Director of Chemical Evaluation and Research, Dr. Patrick Omakbariola, stated that the products are now marketed under different names for sales purposes. The House of Representatives has asked the federal government to immortalize late elder statesman Lieutenant General Oladipo Dia. The House made the resolution today following a motion from the member representing Ijebu-Ode Odogbolu Ijebu North-East Federal Constituency, Kolapo Osunsanya. The lower chamber held a moment of silence in his honor and stated that a delegation would be sent to visit his family in Lagos. Dia's death was announced in a statement by his son, Oyesimilola Dia, on Sunday morning. The late general, who was the chief of staff under the late head of state, General Sani Abacha, died barely a week before he turned 79. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says world leaders should put aside their differences and work toward eliminating terrorism in Africa. In a statement today, Professor Osinbajo's spokesperson Laolu Akonde says the Vice President made the call in a lecture delivered at King's College, London. Professor Osinbajo said there was turmoil in the continent driven in part by poverty, alienation, environmental degradation, and poor governance. He said terrorism escalated the existing problems and asked world leaders to recognize that a threat of terrorism in any part of the world is a threat to humanity as a whole. The Vice President said it was important to act fast, as statistics have shown that Africa is home to some of the world's fastest growing. On the foreign scene, 6 people, 3 of them children, have been killed in a primary school shooting in Nashville, United States. The shooter was identified as 28-year-old Audrey Hale, who was killed by police at the scene. Police said Hale was transgender and used male pronouns on social media. Body cam footage of officers confronting the shooter has also been released by the police, and they say more weapons have been recovered from Hale's home. The Covenant School in Nashville is a private Christian school for students aged 3 to 11. Since the shooting, President Joe Biden has renewed calls for Congress to take action on gun violence.
I just want to speak very briefly about the school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, Ben and I have been doing this our whole careers, it seems. And it's just, it's sick. You know, we're still gathering the facts of what happened and why. And we do know that as of now, there are a number of people who are did not make it, including children. It's heartbreaking, family's worst nightmare. And I want to commend the police who responded incredibly swiftly within minutes and the danger. We're monitoring the situation really closely, Ben, as you know, and we have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation. And we have to do more to protect our schools so they aren't turned into prisons. You know, the shooter in this situation reportedly had 2 assault weapons and a pistol, 2 AK-47. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban.
United States Vice President Kamala Harris has said that the U.S. will increase investment in Africa and help spur economic growth as she began a week-long tour of the continent aimed at countering the influence of rivals Russia and China. Ms. Harris early touched down in Ghana, the first destination in the trip that will include visits to Tanzania and Zambia.
Vice President Kamala Harris has said that the United States will increase investment in Africa and help spur economic growth as she began a week-long tour of the continent aimed at countering the influence of rivals Russia and China. First, it was the U.S. Secretary of State who went on a trip to Africa. Now it is the Vice President, and later in the year, the President himself is expected to come. This flurry of visits by top figures in the U.S. administration reflects a growing awareness that the U.S. needs to deepen its engagement with the continent. Vice President Kamala Harris started her 9-day trip in Ghana on Sunday, where she was greeted by drummers and dancers at Kotoka International Airport. She will later go to Tanzania and Zambia. Ghana provides an ideal launchpad for Ms. Harris, with its focus on strengthening ties with African diaspora, as well as a record of several peaceful democratic transfers of power.
The median age on the continent of Africa is 19. Think about what that means in terms of potential. Think about the fact that by 2050, 1 in 4 people occupying a place on Mother Earth will be on this continent, and what that means.
According to an official statement, her trip is intended to build on December's U.S.-Africa summit in Washington, where President Joe Biden pronounced that the U.S. was all in on Africa's future. While Secretary of State Antony Blinken's recent visit to Ethiopia and Nigeria focused on these countries' security challenges, the Vice President's tour would take her to nations facing serious economic problems. Ghana's once thriving economy is going through its most difficult financial crisis in decades. The country is seeking to restructure its debt amid surging inflation of over 50%. The administration of Joe Biden has sought to strengthen ties with Africa, partly to offer an alternative to rival powers amid global competition over the continent's future. Harris will visit a castle from which people were forcibly sent to the U.S. during the slave trade era. Harris will be in Ghana from March 26 to 29, then in Tanzania from March 29 to 31. Her final stop is Zambia on March 31st and April 1. She will meet with the three countries' presidents and plans to announce public and private sector investments. The U.S. Vice President, the first woman to hold that position, will meet President Samia Suluhu Hassan, her country's first female head of state. Ms. Harris is the most senior U.S. official from the Biden administration to visit Africa and the fifth since December's U.S.-Africa summit. Others have been the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield, First Lady Joe Biden, and Mr. Blinken. However, with the renewed interest comes a demand from the continent to be treated fairly. U.S. announces $100 million package to fight conflict in coastal West Africa to help address the threat of violent extremism and instability, including Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo.
In response to recent democratic backsliding in West Africa and standing up for democratic principles around the world. We also recognize Ghana's significant contributions in the Sahel, and I thank you for your leadership there. To help address the threats of violent extremism and instability, today I am pleased to announce $100 million in support of Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. Last week, President Joe Biden announced a strategic plan for coastal West Africa as part of the United States strategy to prevent conflict and promote stability. Today, funding and the announcement that I've just made will help implement that plan and will address security, governance, and development issues in the region. With regard specifically to the economy, I recognize the challenges Ghanaians are facing, especially in the wake of a global pandemic and the disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We welcome Ghana's commitment to reforming its economy to deliver sustainable and inclusive growth. We support Ghana's engagement with the IMF and will continue to push for all bilateral creditors to provide meaningful debt reduction for countries that need it, including Ghana. We must work together as an international community to ease the debt burden that is facing far too many countries.
The Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo has also stated the purpose of the visit in an address to the Ghanaian people.
Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this visit by the American Vice President is to reaffirm the ties of cooperation and the bonds of friendship that our two countries attach to our relations with each other. Vice President Harris and I had the opportunity of meeting in the White House in 2021 and subsequently, where we both pledged our commitment to exploring further areas of interest for the mutual benefit of our two countries. This visit reinforces our commitment to engage each other further to this end.
Temi Tope, Ajijola Oluwaola, Western Spring Television.
Kenya's President William Ruto has condemned yesterday's opposition protest that turned violent and led to the damage of property, including the invasion of a farm belonging to former President Uhuru Kenyatta's family. Addressing Kenyans living in Berlin, President Ruto said he would not allow impunity to be part of the country's discourse. He vowed to ensure security for all Kenyans and businesses by giving the police the independence of enforcing law and order in the country. A church and mosque in Nairobi were destroyed by unknown assailants yesterday night after protesters engaged the police in running battles. Religious leaders have condemned the attack, urging politicians to consider dialogue and preach peace. Veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga has accused the state of sponsoring violence so that protests degenerate into chaos and lead to deaths. Mr. Odinga says the opposition will not relent with their agitation for a review of the 2022 elections, constitution of the Electoral Commission, and addressing the rise in the cost of living.
Some of you are concerned about what's going on in Nairobi, what's going on in Kisumu. Let me promise you that we are going to take care of that situation. Kenya is a country of the rule of law, all right? And as responsible citizens, and as president, I will ensure that everybody's property, it is my duty, everybody's property, everybody's business, everybody's hustle is protected, and the lives of the people of Kenya are protected. It is the duty of the police. My administration will make the resources necessary, the policy decisions necessary for the police to execute their mandate in accordance with the law and the Constitution. And when I took office,
still ahead, President Muhammadu Buhari flags off the first drill for oil in Nasarawa State, with the country hoping to raise its oil reserves to 50 billion barrels in the next decade. We have more on these and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
On 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. Ahmadu Bello, Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history.
Welcome back. Now to business. President Muhammadu Buhari has flagged off the first drill for oil in Nasarawa State, with the country hoping to raise its oil reserves to 50 billion barrels in the next decade. Nigeria's oil reserves currently stand at 37.8 billion barrels. Speaking at the flag-off of the spotting of Ebenyi A oil well in Ajibu Obi local government area of Nasarawa State, President Buhari said the government was determined to boost Nigeria's oil production capacity by moving into new frontiers. He added that the surrounding community will benefit from the revenue that will be generated by the exploration and eventual production activities in the area. Also speaking at the event, Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, said exploration in the Benue Trough commenced in 2010. He said the positive outcome of the exploration and production activities will also increase crude oil production to the target of 3 million barrels per day. During the presentation of the 2023 federal government budget in January, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, disclosed that the federal government will stop the payment of fuel subsidy by the end of June. The fuel subsidy removal means the federal government will cut its contribution to reduce fuel price, while fuel will be sold in accordance with the prevailing market price based on the actual cost of importation. While this development has been accepted by some Nigerians, a retired teacher who spoke to Western Spring Television News, Shegun Alunga, says the subsidy has not been beneficial to many Nigerians, adding that it should be totally removed. Meanwhile, some Nigerians still cannot wrap their hands around the narrative of the fuel subsidy removal, a situation that calls for more public enlightenment. It comes as there have been concerns and fears from some stakeholders who maintained that Nigerians may buy a litre of fuel for 750 naira per litre if the subsidy is removed.
Personally, I agree with the removal of the subsidy because all along, fuel subsidy has been a scam. He who wears the shoe feels the pain. If you investigate what they call fuel subsidy, it has always been a scam. Just a group of people, we call them cabal, exploiting Nigerian inefficiency in administration to shit on the populace or on the common purse. They call it fuel subsidy. There is no fuel subsidy anywhere. Even fuel that is not lifted, they come round to collect subsidy on it. So it has always been a scam because of the type of leadership we have. They should remove it outrightly. If you are lucky to have a good leader in Nigeria, let him remove the subsidy and let us know where we are starting from. Since it has always been a scam, you cannot rely on that. It has no effect on the common people. They lift oil, they sell it offshore, off land. The little they bring inside, they sell it out again, all in the name of our subsidy that is not beneficiary to the common people in Nigeria. So why must we sustain that?
Well, as far as I know, fuel subsidy removal has been the problem for some years. They've been discussing it. We don't really know the impact and what the government is doing about subsidy or no subsidy. My own point is this: why is everybody talking about subsidy? What is the government going to do about subsidy removal? What is the meaning of subsidy removal? What are those things that we are going to benefit if they remove fuel subsidy, and what are those things we are going to lose? I've always canvassed for the repair of all petrochemical industries in Nigeria. I don't know what impact the removal of subsidy will bring to Nigeria, what the effect is going to give, but as far as I can see, removal of fuel subsidy could be a thing that is political. It may be political. It may be that there are some people underground who are making a lot of money from fuel subsidy, and those who are clamoring for subsidy removal.
Because àwọn tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Áfíríkà wà báyìí ní ìsìn báyìí kò sí owó níta
àmọ́ tí nǹkan bá tún wọ́n sí ìta ò le àwọn táwọn sọ tí ó bá wà ní pé mo fi epo lẹ́lẹ̀ tí ó ṣe dáa àwọn táwọn sọ pé kí mo yọ nǹkan ẹ mọ̀ yọ nǹkan tábà ní kí mo yọ náà ó nǹkan tó lè wọ́n sí tábà ní kí mo má yọ nǹkan tó lè wọ́n sí àmọ́ tí ó ṣe dáa tí ó sì rọ mẹ̀kúnnù lọ́rùn ń táwa ní the after nìyẹn.
In the meantime, Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige says the incoming administration of Bola Tinubu will bear the brunt of providing palliative measures for millions of Nigerians ahead of the removal of petrol subsidy in June 2023. Senator Ngige disclosed this at the 68th session of the State House Ministerial Briefing organized by the Presidential Communications Team at the Asa Rock Villa, Abuja. Earlier, the federal government said it had yet to harmonize its efforts with states to provide palliatives to cushion the effects of the gradual removal of petroleum subsidy scheduled for June. However, it said the concerned committees would soon conclude discussions with key stakeholders as the Buhari administration winds down. Talking sports, two-time former unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua has stated he will hang his boxing gloves if he loses to American boxer Jermaine Franklin. Joshua was scheduled to fight Tyson Fury in November or December. However, the fight never came to fruition due to sponsorship issues, but the 33-year-old later opted to face Franklin come Saturday at the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London. The former champion will hope to upturn his bad run of form after losses to Alexander Usyk in August of 2022 and get back in contention for the titles. Speaking on his post-retirement plans, Joshua, a British Nigerian, indicated he was going to enjoy himself despite the pressure he has had to bear in his career. He also tried to downplay Franklin's chances, claiming his opponent needed the fight more for his career resurgence. Arsenal player Bukayo Saka is set to sign a new long-term contract with the football club. While his present contract was due to expire in the summer of 2024, it is hopeful the winger will extend it to 2028. With the deal, he is expected to earn 4 times his current salary and become the Ghana's highest paid player. Daily Mail revealed that Saka, who earns a weekly wage of £70,000 per week, is on the verge of signing a contract worth £300,000 per week. Saka has played a pivotal role as the Gunners occupy top spot in the Premier League with 10 games remaining. He has started every match for Arsenal in England's top tier of the season, scoring an impressive 12 goals and recording 11 assists. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. The People's Democratic Party, PDP National Working Committee, has named Iliya Umar Damagum as the acting national chairman, replacing Iyorchia Ayu. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, have suspended their planned strike scheduled to commence tomorrow over the scarcity of Naira notes. In Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke today assured the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, of the state government's support in sustaining and entrenching his lofty policies and programs. And on the foreign scene, we brought you news that 6 people, 3 of them children, have been killed in a primary school shooting in Nashville, United States. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Damilola Raphael. Thanks for watching. Have a restful evening.